All right, so I have a question for you. What would happen if you lost your job tomorrow? And this is a serious question because most people have no plan B. And that's freaking scary. I've spoken about this in the past, how a lot of people in the West, Australia, US, UK, Canada, they don't have a plan B. They rely on their job to pay their bills, which is perfectly reasonable. But what happens if you woke up and your job wasn't there tomorrow? Because right now, across the whole world, there are mass layoffs happening. As businesses start to struggle, start to splutter, the first thing that goes is the people. And there's a lot of people out there getting a rude awakening, realizing that the job that they had may not be as secure as they thought it was. So in today's video, I'm going to explain why everyone needs a plan B. They need a secondary source of income to make sure that if this happens to them, it doesn't catastrophically affect their family. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Jimmy, and my wife and my two children, we left Australia 2 years ago, basically because of the cost of living crisis in Australia, and we now live in Penang where we have a better quality of life and we get to spend more time together as a family. And if you want to learn more about that adventure, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about job security for a second. There is no such thing as job security. You got to remember that the person you work for has no loyalty to you, and rightly so too, because their livelihood is the most important thing to them. And unfortunately, your livelihood is secondary to that. So if their business is slowing down or their business is struggling and they have to choose between feeding their own family and feeding your family, who do you think they're going to choose? And loyalty goes out of the window if you have to make that decision. And I think there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that we are living in pretty turbulent times. Between the Chinese economy slowing down and spluttering, which is basically the coalface of the world economy right now, as well as all the global conflicts that are happening at the moment, and the election in the US, who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. In Australia, we're starting to see the flow-on effects of all these interest rate rises. In the US, they've seen that already and they've started lowering interest rates. And that's never a good sign because generally, if they lower the interest rates after raising them by 0.5%, in the last 3 of 4 occasions, that has led to a recession within 12 months. So let's play devil's advocate here and let's just assume that the path we're walking on now is not as secure as the path we were just on. So with that in mind, can you honestly put your hand on your heart and say that I will be okay if I lost my job right now? And unfortunately, the thing is, the majority of people in Western countries cannot say that. If they lost their job tomorrow, they would be in a world of pain because savings rates are the lowest they've ever been because of the rising cost of living. And in most cases, there's no backup, there's no secondary redundancy. And that is one massive thing that's changed over the last, say, 30 to 40 years. So back in the 70s and 80s, most people could live on one income. And that would generally be the man of the house going off working, and then the wife would be at home being a stay-at-home mom or looking after children, or maybe having a very casual job if they wanted to save for a house or something like that. But because you could live on one income, most households had a natural built-in redundancy plan B. That just doesn't exist anymore because you need 2 incomes to keep one household going. So let's talk about this scenario happening in the 70s, which did happen, by the way. Let's say the husband gets fired from his job at a factory. Now, obviously that's catastrophic, but when the wife is not working and she can get back into the workforce, you immediately can inject a second income into the equation to at least tide you over until you get back on your feet. By having the potential of having 2 incomes in one household, in only needing one of them, you created natural redundancies. Now, fast forward to today, how many single income households are there compared to dual income households? There is nowhere near as many, and that's simply because in most cases, you need 2 incomes to live comfortably in the West, in Australia. And we've seemed to have forgotten that this redundancy is a thing that all families need. So if you're not a one income household and you can't just turn a second income on if you were to say lose your job or you needed extra cash with your significant other who's a stay-at-home parent coming into the workforce, then what do we do? Because we still need that redundancy and we need it more than ever. But fortunately, there is a solution, and I just want to plant the seed of an idea. Now, this isn't for everyone, but it will go a long way in building that redundancy and bolstering that security in your income stream. But before I go into that, like I mentioned at the start, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm posting 3 times a week with videos very similar to this one and a little bit about our life in Southeast Asia after leaving the West. So I want to plant the seed of the idea of injecting a third income into that equation. So we have husband working, we have wife working, and then you need to build a third income stream. 2 is 1, 1 is none, 3 is a guarantee. Now, obviously there's only so many hours in the day, and if you're working a 9 to 5 or you're working big hours, the last thing you have is time to go and work at a petrol station. So I completely understand that getting a second job is maybe off the table. But what if you were to start a business and start an online business that maybe you could just ramp up slowly, but then something that you could start after hours, and then if you lost your job, you could just fully commit to it and just ramp it up to supplement some of the income that you're missing out on. You know, basically along the lines of like having something on the sideline that's like warmed up, ready to go in a football game, that if someone gets injured on the field, they can just run onto the field and take the spot. And they may not be as good, but it's better than not having that player on the field and having to forfeit, if that makes sense. So over the last month or two, I've been posting a lot of videos and I talk about how we make our income and how we're able to live over here. And people are blown away that you can make money online in a safe and sustainable way. They see making money as like a scam or a get-rich-quick scheme. And it's really kind of sold like that, which is why it feels like that. You have a lot of people that are selling like MLMs. You have a lot of people selling high-ticket sales and affiliate marketing and selling passive income and getting rich quick. But not everything online is like that. There are lots of things you can be doing online that are perfectly legal, that won't make you super rich, but could go a long way to supplementing a loss in income if you were to say lose your job. So I'm going to go through the way of making income online that I personally like the best, that fits this bill the best. But honestly, there are so many different ways to make money online, and I've got a few videos of them in the channel if you want to go and have a look for them. So we're looking for a digital income stream that will work asynchronously in nature, that can be ramped up and down based on our situation. Let's say, for instance, we lost our job and we need to work harder, or can just be done at night and have a couple of customers or a couple of clients and keep ticking over. We also need something that's sustainable and repeatable and won't go away, and something that anyone can learn how to do. And actually what I do, which is digital marketing, fits that bill perfectly. So this way of making money online needs to fit a few criteria, right? It needs to be asynchronous in nature, meaning that if you're working during the day, it can't disrupt that. You still got to make your living. You still got your day job. You can't have this online income stream disrupting you during the day. And I think that's why so many people get caught up in these like passive income. There's no such thing as passive income, by the way, except maybe dividends. But there's no such thing as passive income online. Almost all of the income streams that are available in the online space require some form of work. So don't get sucked into this like passive income. It's just a load of lies. So it needs to require asynchronous input. We know that it requires work, but that work can be done after hours. Say you get home, and instead of going watching Netflix from 8 till 10 o'clock, you might work in your online business. It needs to also have the ability to be ramped up and ramped down. So while you have your job, we want to focus on that job so we can keep it for as long as possible. But we also want to be growing this thing on the sidelines, like I said, so that if you do need it, let's say you lost your job, you could literally just start ramping up what you're doing and let that take over a portion of the income that you lost, effectively acting like a third person in a marriage, so to speak, like that income on the sidelines that can be activated. It also needs to have the ability to make decent money. I think there's no use doing something that you can only ever make $1,000 in a month after 2 years. It needs to have some earning potential. Otherwise, it won't make your situation any better if you did, say, lose your job. It needs to be able to replace your current income if it has the effort put into it like your job does. And it also needs to be something that is easy enough to learn, but still a valuable skill. At the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with the online space, the last thing you want to have to do is learn something that's super complex that may be impossible to learn, even though it's a good fit. So we want to do something that just requires effort to learn, but that skill is disproportionately valued in the market because not a lot of people have taken the time to learn it. And funnily enough, Digital marketing, which is what I do and is what I've done for the last 10 years, fits that bill perfectly and is actually why I did it in the first place. So the thing is, with running a digital marketing agency, what you're effectively doing is you're basically running an online business that does advertising for businesses. So you think about it, you have a local plumber and they want to get more customers. They want to run Google ads, but they don't know how to. They go to a digital marketing agency to set up those ads and run those ads on their behalf. It's something that's been around forever because businesses, regardless of their size, pretty much all businesses at some point need help to get more customers. And that's what digital marketers do. And while it may feel intimidating to learn, it's really something that anyone can learn how to do because these platforms are designed to get small businesses to do it themselves. So because small businesses themselves can do it, they've literally been designed so anyone can do it. But what I suppose learning how to do it professionally does is it teaches you to do it at scale and it teaches you to do it in a way that is efficient. So a small business may do their own Facebook ads, but they're not going to do it anywhere near as good as a professional marketer who has the background and expertise in doing them at scale and doing them efficiently and knowing what comes next. Like the cost of starting an agency is quite low relative to other businesses. If you're going to start a plumbing business, you're not going to get much change out of $60,000, $70,000 by the time you buy a vehicle and the tools to be able to do it, and you haven't even made a cent. With a marketing agency, you could start a marketing agency for $500 if you wanted to, but $500 to a couple of $1,000s is really all you need because the only real cost is labor and a couple of subscriptions. Obviously, you want to be making money doing this, but if you're doing this as something on top of your job to build something so that if you lost your job, you had something you could move on to, you could do it quite easily. You could do it quite cheaply, which minimizes the risk, obviously, of it not working. And it fits the bill perfectly for asynchronous work and being able to scale up and down. Part of the reason I started a digital marketing agency over all the other stuff 8.5 years ago was I was a mechanical fitter full time. So I could only work on the online business. I could only work on my digital marketing once I finished work. So I got home, put the kids to bed around 8 o'clock at night. I would start on the digital marketing agency and then I'd work all the way through to about midnight. Now, the beauty is I would get emails during the day, but the thing is when you're doing ads for people, if they have a problem, it doesn't need to be solved right there and then. So I'd get an email saying, we need to fix this or something's not right with the ads. I would just wait till I got home or I was on a lunch break or something like that, and then I would fix it. There's nothing popping up that's like, you need to fix this, red alert, it needs to be done right there and then. There's nothing really that pops up like that. And the beauty about digital marketing is that if you have to scale it, you can scale it up and down based on where you're at in life. So when I was employed and I was working and I was just building this thing, I just went slow and I got a couple of customers and that was all I needed because it injected a couple of $1,000s a month into our bank. And that was plenty because I was still working on my job. But as soon as I left the job to pursue the agency full time, I just ramped everything up. And then we went from 2 customers to 10 customers quite quickly. And then I replaced the income that I had. So it ramps up and down perfectly because the amount of income you make is based on the amount of customers and the amount of outreach and acquisition to get those customers you do. So if you're not doing as much acquisition, you won't get as many customers. But if you have more time, you can do more acquisition. Now, it doesn't have to be digital marketing. That was just a suggestion. If you do want to learn more about digital marketing though, there's a link in the description, there's a link in the pinned comments, and there's a card up here where I talk a little bit more about how I do it. If you want to learn more about that, click that link. If not, all I would suggest is you start exploring the digital space as a way of getting a tertiary income into your family or a secondary income if you're a single person into your family, because who knows if you will have your job in 6 months. No one can guarantee that. The only guarantee you can have is if you start to build something for yourself so that you can't be fired from it. And yeah, of course, you could start a brick and mortar business, you could start a mail run, you could start mowing lawns, whatever. But those things aren't asynchronous in nature. You need to be there, you need to be operating. You could get a weekend gig, you could start a weekend mowing business. That's just as good. I just think technology is the way of the future. Moving online and earning your income online is the way of the future. And so I would start exploring the options that are there, just so that you have that redundancy. Because the best time to do it was yesterday. The second best time is right now. The worst case scenario is you start trying to set this up when you lose your job. That is the worst case scenario because you're going to be pressured, you're going to have time sensitivity, and you're going to be stressed. Whereas if you were to start it now, while you're working and doing it after hours, you may just get a second lease of life, and you may get a lot of comfort in knowing you're working towards securing your income, securing your family's future, and making sure that if the worst case scenario happens and you lose your job, you can still keep the bills paid. So guys, like I said, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm just dropping random thoughts like this periodically. I've seen this all came about from an article that I read about mass layoffs, and I thought, why not talk about this? And also, like I said, if you want to learn more about digital marketing, go and check out the link below, and I'll explain how I went about it. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the horizon.